Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining our session, Best Practices of Mobile Workforce Scheduling, an interview with Rocket Fiber. My name is Aya Fawzi, and I'll be your moderator for today. I'm so excited to introduce our speakers. We have Matt Fairhurst, CEO and co-founder of Skedulo. Matt brings over 10 years of product and UX experience. Prior to finding Skedulo, Matt held a number of leadership roles in marketing, consulting, and design in the enterprise software and manufacturing sector. And I'm really excited to introduce Christina Simbert. She is the VP of Client Experience or Client Services at Rocket Fiber. Christina leads the client-facing team in Rocket Fiber, residential sales, client service, tech experience, and marketing. She's really heavily focused on building this amazing process for all Rocket Fiber clients and culture internally within the team. So she's going to be a great resource to discuss how she went about implementing technology to help her organization as a whole, and in particular, all those people in the field doing the job. Before we begin this webinar, I just wanted to do a few housekeeping items. A link with today's recording will be made available to everyone after the webinar. If you guys have any questions for our speakers, please submit them by using the chat section of the GoToWebinar console. We will answer all questions during the Q&A portion of the webinar. So without further ado, Matt, take it away.
Thanks, Aya. I really appreciate that introduction, and great to have you on the line, Christina. I appreciate that things are pretty busy there in Detroit, so I really appreciate you making some time to have a chat with us today, and looking forward to learning a little bit more about how Rocket Fiber made some of the decisions they did around technology and how that's working out. But just to quickly introduce Skedulo, we're a mobile workforce and scheduling company and software company that has built a product to help companies just like Rocket Fiber, and not only in the telecommunications fiber installation industry, but across many different organizations that have challenges scheduling and assigning work to people in the field and getting work done on a mobile application, and really kind of modernizing their approach to how they manage people's time, location, travel, etc., that make up the challenges that is sort of field service, field scheduling, and field mobility. We integrate really well with enterprise platforms like Salesforce.com and try to close that loop between customer experience and functional operations in the field. So happy to be sort of talking a little bit about our technology today, but more interested in really getting an understanding from Christina who Rocket Fiber are, what they do, some of the decisions they went through when they chose technology to solve some of those challenges, and I guess a little bit about the future of Rocket Fiber as well. So without further ado, love to just introduce Christina here. Aya's done a great job of that already. But Christina, thanks so much for sitting down with us today, and I guess walking us through who Rocket Fiber are and what you do, but also some of the points that we spoke to just now. Be great to kick off and learn a little bit more about Rocket Fiber, who you are and what you do, and the problems that you're trying to solve for your customers.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for having me, you guys. So I'm Christina, and I am one of the original founding members with Rocket Fiber. We are a new Detroit-based internet service provider. We're disrupting the Detroit market right now with gigabit internet speeds, and providing a completely different client experience than what has historically been known to be in the market, which, as I think most of us know, has not been great, especially in the Detroit area. Detroit has historically struggled with many things, but of which one of the largest things is the theory of digital divide. And so many hundreds of thousands of residents in the city of Detroit don't have access to the internet or other technology. And so we came together a couple of years ago and decided that this was something that we wanted to make happen. We branched out of our mother company, which is Quicken Loans. Dan Gilbert is our primary funder. And we launched service about a year and a half ago in the downtown Detroit area. We now have about 1,500 residential clients online and a couple hundred business clients online. We've ramped up slowly over the last year so that we could kind of get our feet wet. And then the rest of this year is going to be huge for us. We're going to explode. We start expansion from there and have, as we call, plans for world domination in the years to come. So that's been fun and exciting.
Awesome. That is so exciting and inspiring. I think Rocket Fiber and Skedulo have been working together for a little over a year, and it's been amazing to sort of stand back and watch how a company that's fairly new have grown so quickly in what is a pretty traditional industry of telecommunications installation, but taking a really modern, lean, and agile approach to the way that you solve some of those problems, and from what I hear, really delivering on the promise of amazing internet speed, which is although I'm probably a little biased working in technology, one of the things I think is so critical for cities and countries as they think about industry transformation and the modernization of how businesses operate. So super inspiring story, and look forward to hearing more. Yeah, no worries. So I think we're going to frame this conversation out and talk a little bit about what we see in terms of best practice approaches to making decisions around choosing technology to help solve some of the problems that you had and some of the challenges that you had, I guess, and not so much legacy problems, but simply just operational challenges around, okay, we're a new company, we're growing really quickly, we're performing a very functional activity in the field, but also wanting to deliver amazing customer service. And I think we can talk a little bit about the best practices in terms of the approach that customers go through when they're making technology decisions to address some of those needs. And I think one of the things that we've seen as a company that builds software and that's scrutinized every day in these kind of processes is, when you're implementing and you're going to implement very functional and enterprise-grade technology to solve a very critical problem and a very critical sort of service-related problem in the field, it isn't a small widget that kind of gets installed and up and running and without much forethought. There is a lot of thought and decision-making that goes into why you make technology choices and why you choose one scheduling technology over another or one mobility technology over the other. So, when you went through that process, what were some of the things when you looked at Rocket Fiber and the very kind of near coming future that you were going through, what were some of the things that you thought about to sort of mature your understanding of saying, well, what is it that we need and what is it that we're looking for in technology? How did you go about that process?
Yeah, so fortunately or unfortunately for Rocket Fiber, I do not have a background personally in really anything technology related. I am not an internet service provider person by trade. I am, however, a process person. So my background is in leading the process excellence group at one of our sister companies over the last 16 years. And really understanding developing process and technology around an end goal, right? So really truly understanding what you're trying to provide before you start trying to pigeonhole your processes or thought processes into a technology. So for us, in our industry, we know that all of our competition, if they haven't already, will in the coming year catch up to us as it relates to speed and even the types of technologies that we're using, the types of equipment that we're using, all that fun stuff. That is not our market differentiator. Our market differentiator is in the way that we treat humans. I care passionately and deeply about how our clients view us. It's the reason that I chose to come to Rocket Fiber in the beginning. I want every person, regardless of if they're a client of ours or not, we've got some people who aren't ready to switch to us now, but might in a few years. And every single person that we talk to is a potential future client of Rocket Fiber. And they should leave feeling like their day was better because they talked to us about anything, right? So when we started to launch into technology, we started backwards. Where instead of saying, okay, we need a billing platform and a CRM and a field tech scheduling tool and all these other things, we said, we need to provide the client with the solutions that they need in order to feel like we are a viable solution for them in the end, as a partner, as a technology solutions partner. So we sat down and brainstormed all the reasons why a client would ever need to talk to us. What's any reason if a client ever called us, what could they possibly need from us? And from there, we started to back those questions into technology solutions. Obviously, one of those things was appointment scheduling. It's historically a pain point, this theory of a window of when someone can show up to an appointment time, right? Like
Yeah.
In the ISP world or in the furniture delivery world or whatever it is, you end up with a morning or afternoon block, right? It's like 4 or 5 hours. And for us, that just wasn't something that was going to work. It is absolutely 100% possible to say you will be somewhere at 10 o'clock and show up at 9:57.
Yeah.
And your clients should know when you're on your way and when you've gotten there. And if there's any issues along the way, they should know about that. And full transparency, right? Like authentic, transparent client service. So
Yeah,
I had looked
awesome.
through a million field tech scheduling tools and found you guys.
Great. Yeah, that's awesome. And I think, certainly in my home country of Australia, there's lots of challenges that customers have around very traditional ISPs and those really long wait times of not only installation and delivery, but simply even getting on the phone to talk to someone. And it's so refreshing to see a company that, from day one saw that as the key differentiator and one of the ways that they could change the way that technology was delivered and into people's homes and into businesses. So that's really refreshing. I think, you spoke to a really interesting point there where, you didn't necessarily come from a background where you'd use these kind of software, this kind of software before, or these solutions before. You were more in the line of business, and you're looking at efficiency and operations, which is wonderful. And although we love working with IT teams and IT departments within the enterprise, we always love sort of taking that, line of business and very practical, like end goal challenge right from the get-go, and thinking about with our customers how we can help them attain those goals really effectively. And one thing that we see, particularly in the line of business, one of the ways that we see customers do that is they kind of create a checklist, and whether it's a mental checklist or a really structured approach out of a brainstorming session that says, these are all of the challenges that we're going to have, and these are the reasons why a customer is going to get in touch. How do you sort of boil that down into, a set of criteria that can help a company like Rocket Fiber actually make a technology decision? So when you went out to market and looked at all those solutions that were available, many of which have been serving, the telco space for a long time and helping them solve that kind of 4-hour afternoon block problem. What was sort of the criteria that kind of reached or helped you get ultimately to the point that you obviously use Salesforce.com, but secondly Skedulo?
So internal client experience to me is just as important as external. So that was one of the major flaws that we saw in a lot of the technology solutions that we had looked at. The typical tools that are used today in the ISP space are just flat out ugly to look at from a team member perspective. As a scheduler, like to have to work in that workflow all day. I had been out to shadow a lot of other fiber internet providers when we first launched to see what their client experiences were like. And one of the messiest parts of all of those worlds that I had shadowed was in scheduling. You end up with 3 different screens open, and you're scheduling in one tool and copying, pasting notes into something else, and then having to flip over to something else in order to dispatch. And so for me, it was making sure that our internal process was as seamless and easy to use, which I'm sure I've probably driven you guys crazy with at times, making sure that things are easy for us too. But you are very nice about it all the time. But, I think that was one of the biggest differentiators for us, was making sure that we had something that was easy for our dispatchers to use, something that was mobile accessible to our field technicians. I never want those guys logging into a desktop ever. They should be able to do their time off requests and enter their schedules and see their jobs and do anything they need to do. They should be able to do on their app. So that was another huge thing that was already done. I didn't have to go build that. Yeah. And then, lastly is the flexibility that, you guys had with us just from day one. Quite honestly, we worried, especially as a startup, about how companies, how vendors, because I came from a world where all of our technology was proprietary. We had developed it all in-house. We supported ourselves, and that was how we lived our lives, and we didn't have to rely on anyone else. And so now in the startup space, I worked with a lot of different vendors to piece together different software solutions. And one of my big concerns was working with a vendor who wouldn't take me seriously as a startup company, or where my needs would be put below the needs of a million other people because we were a small itty bitty baby compared to some of the larger players out there. And in the end, I think that was one of the things that ended up pushing us over the edge with you guys at the end, was how you've always treated us, how the needs that we've had, the flexibility that we've needed with you guys has been prioritized. And that was key for our growth. We couldn't have done it if we hadn't had that.
Awesome. Yeah, and that's great feedback. And we always love hearing those stories. And, I think it also talks to a little bit about, why James, my co-founder, and I really started this company was, we looked at companies like Rocket Fiber where they're super modern, they're growing really quickly, and they have a workforce that has become really comfortable with consumer grade, applications on their phone, and they're using Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat or whatever else they're using. And, it was our thesis to say, well, imagine a world where you didn't have, on the one hand, your smartphone for your personal life that you loved using and you kind of would roll out of bed every day excited to use. And then you have to pick up like this ruggedized, clunky laptop and log into this VPN, and really clunky enterprise level, ugly, difficult to use system. What if field service and field enablement and field work was just as exciting as using a consumer product? And I think we also recognize that when we started working with organizations like yourself, that no two scheduling challenges are exactly the same. Every business is different. And, often I think it's an approach that software can take where they sort of say, hey, here's our product and this is exactly what it does. And it's very, prescriptive, and businesses kind of have to wrap themselves around a particular product and the way that it works. I guess we love partnering with our customers and figuring out how our software and our technology can be wrapped around the business. And I think that kind of leads us into some of these points around, the third best practice that we'll look at, which is what did it mean, for now that you've been using the technology for a while, and particularly the mobile app in the field. One of the things that we really strive for and we try so hard to deliver on is ensuring that all of those people out there doing the work physically in the field and the schedulers back in the office that are controlling processes, making sure that they love using the technology. And how did you find that process of like change management and internal adoption, and why was it easy? Why was it difficult? How have you sort of navigated those waters? Because these are really complex problems, and I think it does take time and it does take a process to adopt technology properly.
Yeah, and I think we're still working through some of that stuff, right? Like, so the rollout to my dispatch team was super easy because we had just been working off of Excel spreadsheets, and it was a very manual, very painful process. So the go live date for dispatch was like party time. But the field technicians, it was an adjustment for them because it was learning new technology. I think so having it on the mobile app was key. I don't think that we could have rolled it out if I needed to have them carry laptops or iPads with them. We're in downtown Detroit, so it's a very walkable type field technician situation that we're in, right? They're driving, if they're driving the trucks anywhere, it's a block or two at a time, because I've got them dispatched to just within a block for jobs. But as we continue to grow, utilizing some of the additional features that we're not using right now with territories and skill-based resource assignments and all of that, like these were the things that I wanted to know that the functionality was there. When we started working with you guys, I was pretty clear that we wanted a very lean, basic initial launch, right? We just wanted to get everyone into the software and play around with it. And so easing out these additional, I think like scalable things that we're building now as we go is helping, because now the field techs have already been using it for about a year. And now every time we add a new feature or a new piece of automation, it's like, oh my God, thank you. This is the best thing that's ever happened to me. I don't have to do this extra 18 steps now. So it gets easier through time. The initial launch, I think, like any new software that you're going to roll out, especially to people who aren't used to working with technology in general, can be challenging. I think that this was as easy as it could have been.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, that's probably one of the reasons that we chose to partner with other enterprise products like Salesforce so closely, was to allow our customers that are in a position like you to say, hey, how do we really, quickly address some sort of minimum viable needs that the business is going to have? How do we really wrap our head around customer service and customer relationship management and have a platform for solving these problems? And then how do we sort of bring in functional products over the top there that we can scale and grow with? And one of the wonderful things about, I think, your approach and our approach and the approach that our partnership with Salesforce means is that customers have a great ability to iterate over time and start introducing continual improvement in the way that they use technology. It's not a set and forget problem that they can go through. So that's a great thing to hear. And one of the other things that I wanted to talk about, thinking about your customer experience and the technology that we're working with you on right now as part of that iteration, is a technology that we wrapped up and called Lens, which is basically a set of APIs that take a lot of our core scheduling functionality and data and wraps it up into core components that our customers can use to build out their own mobile applications or web applications or customer portal environments, for example, to start abstracting some of the scheduling functionality and job tracking functionality away from the command tower or the control tower of those scheduling operators, and start to put some of that power into the customer's hands. And I'm particularly interested in understanding, your future growth in that area. I know that we're working with you to look at sort of that almost an e-commerce environment with Rocket Fiber and your website that allows a customer to kind of go through and say, am I eligible for this fiber service? Let's sort of go through and set up my details, and then take that all the way through to setting up billing and then scheduling installation appointment. And I'm really interested to hear about what that kind of customer self-service journey is going to look like for you in the future, and why that's so critical to how you guys are delivering the services you deliver.
Yeah, I am very excited about that, which we actually have a call about that in about an hour. So that's good timing. That is the next phase for us. So right now, if you are a client, you come to rocketfiber.com, you can flow through online checkout up to the point of scheduling. And then you get a little screen that pops up that says, great, thank you. One of our Rocketeers will be in contact with you within the next 24 hours to schedule your installation. And then we call and we have to do manual scheduling. So the next phase of that, which you've got up here right now, is self-scheduling, which we are super excited about. I think, for us, knowing where we're headed in the next year from a scalability perspective, if this wasn't an option for us, we would not have selected you as a software. This was a critical must-have, and something that, from a staffing perspective, I can have 20% of the number of team members that I would need in the big scheme of life if I don't have to have manual field tech scheduling. So we're really excited about it. I'm excited to get that pushed out.
Yeah, awesome. And I think, it really talks to, the layers that go into implementing some of these solutions, and particularly, field scheduling and field mobility, where, there's so many appointment booking tools, online that can, book big appointment windows, and then you kind of got to translate that and find people's availability to fit the window or the time that was booked by the customer. I think that when you join those two things together, like what's really happening on the ground, what's been scheduled already, what are people working on in the field, and combining that with a customer facing component, it sort of brings those two, one sort of inward facing, one sort of outward facing challenge together, and allows you to really kind of solve some pretty complex real-time problems. And I think,
yeah, when we first started talking, I think we had talked about, we had thrown around the term Opentable, right? I wanted someone to be able to come to the website and see, like, literally down to the minute what time the appointments were available. So that was where we landed, which is great.
Yeah, that's cool. So I think a lot of this, and certainly a lot of the things that you've spoken to, tie back to that core construct that you used when you introduced Rocket Fiber and what it is that you guys see as your big differentiator. For you, how have you looked at the connection of technology and the effectiveness of technology and tools like Skedulo and like Salesforce.com, and how have you made that connection to that key differentiator for you of customer experience and your client experience? How is that sort of actually translated a year later, and how are you seeing that impact, and is that resonating with that original vision that Rocket Fiber had?
Yeah, I mean, the translation is seen in that any of the client testimonials that we get, whenever I have a client reach out and say, oh my goodness, this has been the most amazing experience, I'm so happy, it's because of the experience that they've had with our field technician, right? Like, in the end, they'll call and they'll talk to one of our client experience team members here in the office for maybe 5 minutes while setting up their initial appointment time. But the real interaction with Rocket Fiber comes in the fact that they schedule an appointment, we call them to confirm that we'll actually be there on time, and then someone shows up at the time that we said that we would be there. They're there for less time than we had told them that we would be there for. Our guys are amazing and kind and nice and make sure that the client is taken care of. So, I think in the end, if we had a tool that was more difficult to work with, or something that wasn't as easy for our field techs to use, or that wouldn't have allowed us to block specific time blocks, that we wouldn't be where we are right now. And so, I think now it's just continuing on that path with the implementation of Lens, so that now a client, if we fast forward a year from now, can schedule an appointment time and watch their field tech en route to their house and know when they're 5 minutes out, especially in a major city like this, where we've got a lot of people who work and live in the same couple block radius, that, you can go to work and leave work and 5 minutes later be at home for your appointment, and, cut out that like 2 hours of wait time and having to take a half day off of work in order to get your internet hooked up. So we've definitely seen that come together.
Awesome, that's so good. And I've certainly, like I said, interacted with many ISPs and providers coming into my home, and if only they could take a leaf out of the Rocket Fiber book sometimes, I think, or maybe if Rocket Fiber just dominates the world of ISPs ultimately, then that's a great outcome for everyone, I think. I think I'll cross back to you at this point. I think we've had some questions come through from people that are on the webinar, so want to make sure that we have the time for myself or Christina, depending on who they're targeted at, to answer those.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much, guys. Christina, thanks for walking us through that journey you guys took as an organization from what you looked for and how it all came together. So let's turn it over to questions. If anyone in the audience has any questions, please feel free to write them in the chat box. So the first one we have is for Matt. Does the app also cover time tracking and client reporting?
Yeah, so the question is for me, sorry, yep. Yeah, it absolutely does. We have our mobile application in the field that allows us to track all of those granular movements from the time that the job was originally dispatched to the worker to the time that they've accepted the job, and provided some relative confirmation around the fact that they're aware of it and they have to do it, right through to the time that they start travel and opening up their the mapping application to get them to the job in the most efficient way, checking in on site and arriving, and then starting the work and finally completing it after they're done. So each of those microtransactions ultimately rolls up into a whole set of timestamps as it relates to a job, and they can all roll up into a timesheet. And many of our customers, in fact, use that data to push through to, say, a payroll provider or a HR tool to calculate some of the more payroll and financial analytics of what those times and what those transactions mean against a job. And I think the second part of that question was around client analytics, was it?
It was around client reporting, yes.
Client reporting, yeah. So client reporting, if I'm understanding that part of the question correctly, relates to that product that we have called Lens, which allows our customers to take all of that transactional data that's happening in Skedulo in real time, whether something's being scheduled or something's happening from a mobility perspective in the field, and push that out to their customers in many different ways. And we have APIs for scheduling, for example, and Christina and Rocket Fiber are using that API and that tool to build out their fiber installation e-commerce journey for their customers and allow them to schedule in real time. Other customers use that technology to, for example, send an SMS to their customer to say, hey, we're running 5 minutes late, or we're going to be there early, or John has just left and he's going to be running on time. We'll see you in 20 minutes. Maybe even like this is what he looks like, so that you're not surprised once he arrives. So there's many different use cases of how our customers are using that technology to implement really interesting and innovative ways to communicate with their customers and provide them insight as to when things are going to happen, why things are happening. We work, for example, a lot with healthcare, and the healthcare industry, this is a really critical factor of what they do, because if a nurse or a doctor or a practitioner is arriving in your home, it's really critical that family members or individual patients and that kind of thing are aware of who potentially is entering a home. So yep, many different ways that we can help customers solve those problems.
Awesome. And since we are talking about the application, there's a few more questions rolling in about geofencing. So Matt, if you can just talk really fast about, does Skedulo do geofencing, how it works? Does it have geofencing to track when an employee arrives or departs a critical address? And does this interface work with NEP's PayWeb?
The second part of the question, I'd have to follow up on email just to get the specific answer around an integration question. But all of those transactions that I mentioned earlier are geo-stamped just like they are time-stamped. So as a resource is moving around, we're collecting all of those locations that actual transactions happen. So if they've arrived on site or they're completing a job, we're storing them as a reportable entity. But more than that, we're actually tracking resources in real time if that's a function that your business has allowed within our product. Some organizations are uncomfortable with that. Some are super comfortable with that because it helps them solve challenges. So as a resource is moving around and as a worker is moving around on their mobile device, we're tracking that in real time. And what that allows us to do is do things like automated alerts around or updates around, yep, he's arrived or he's entered, say, a radius of 50 meters or 100 meters or 100 feet from the job location. Let's perform some kind of action. Or he's left his most recent job and he's going to travel, so let's send that SMS notification to the next customer and tell them that he's left and he's on his way. I know that we have on our roadmap, and I'm not sure if it's in the next release or in a few releases time, first-class functionality around geofencing on the mobile device that automates a lot of the those processes that I've just mentioned now, where if a resource arrives within a certain radius from a job, he's actually reminded on his phone to say, hey, it looks like you've arrived at job number X, Y, and Z. Do you want to check in? And subsequently, if he leaves the job, prompting them on their mobile device to say, hey, it looks like you've just left a radius of 200 feet from your job location and you haven't completed it yet. Do you want to complete the job? So, taking a little bit of the responsibility away from the user to remember to perform all those time transactions all the time and pin that against geofencing and what that means to the resource in the field so that they don't have to remember to do it all the time. It does it for them. So we're super excited about that, and bringing together both time tracking and geofencing is a really interesting convergence of technology and mobility that we're super excited about.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. And then Christina, we have a question for you. So what's Rocket Fiber's growth plans and how does technology contribute to that plan if you were to expand beyond just Detroit?
We have big plans for expansion. We'll be announcing a lot of that coming up here, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, if not the next month or so. Technology for us will play a huge part in that expansion. We up until this point have been lucky to have built a really great team of people who have helped us learn a lot about what the process should look and feel like. And now we've got to automate a ton of stuff so that we're able to grow and not hire a gazillion people. Maybe just a few more would be good. I think not just Skedulo specifically, but all of the software that we've chosen, we're going to work a lot on integration and automation and scalability here over the next few months in order to get us ready for our expansion.
Awesome. Cool. Well, I think that is all the questions. So thank you so much, Christina and Matt. That was awesome. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. If we didn't get to your question, we will follow up via email. If you guys have any other questions, just follow up with us, and we'll be happy to address them. Have a great day, everyone, and thanks so much.
Thanks, Aya, and thanks, Christina.
Thank you, guys. All right. Bye-bye.